Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you folks are at. Thank you so much to Emerson for that lovely 101 on backpack and harness training. So you're now with me here in the main room on a 101 on cat harness training specifically. So in terms of today, I think we have until 2:55, so it's going to be a lot, but we'll run through everything. And if you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer them. So with that said, could we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah, so for our session today, we are going to go through the harness training presentation with me, and then we're going to put in some time to do some Q&A with you folks, as well as show some of the Travel Cat products that we have, trying to do some demos, and then we will do an event Zoomy, and finally, we will do our giveaway, which has been really, really awesome. There's some great prizes from Travel Cat for you folks that are attending here today. So let's move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so I'd love for all of you folks to just introduce yourself into the chats with your name, your cat's names, your location, as well as your Instagram. I have the chat box open here. I am super excited to meet with all of you. And yeah, and also if you want to find me, I am at Kimchi, the Adventure Cat. I'll do an introduction in a little bit, but yeah, just drop in the chat your name, your cat name, your location, Instagram, as well as your cat's favorite treat. So let's move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so my name is Erica. I am the human for Kimchi the Adventure Cat, who is here. I don't know where I'm pointing, who is here in the background of me right now. And I am based in Jojage, or so-called Montreal, which is unceded territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation. And I'm the person who's behind the camera and edits for Kimchi the Adventure Cat. Usually you'll see my partner's the one in the videos, also Ginger, just like Kimchi, which is kind of fun. And just a note, I am not an animal behaviorist, but we've been walking Kimchi for the last almost 3 years. And a lot of this comes from our own experiences, as well as researching prior to starting our journey as an adventure cat or a cat just that walks outside on a leash. And honestly, our intention was not to make her an adventure cat. It truly just happened after the first few months of walking together and seeing how happy and how much enrichment that brought into her life. And yeah, and at that point, we thought it would be cool to also start taking photos and taking videos of her. And just so you all know, there's a lot of really helpful resources out there, including from Jackson Galaxy, who you heard from earlier today, as well as the Travel Cat blog. And also there's previous recordings from Emerson, myself, about cat harness training, cat backpack training that's, I think, available on the Travel Cat backpack website. And you can follow us on Instagram, as well as a whole bunch of really cool other folks on Instagram, TikTok to ask questions about harness and backpack training. And I personally really love hearing from you folks. So feel free to add me, and I try to answer them as much as possible. And also, I want to give a really big special thanks to our guide, who is at Colossus Kitty, so the human behind at Colossus Kitty, who will be in the chat answering some of your questions. So feel free to populate the chat with questions, and we'll try our best to answer them. And let's move on to the next slide, please. Perfect. So why is it important to harness train your cat, and why is it beneficial? For our household, and according to some of the research that we've done through actual animal behaviorists, there's so many different benefits. So first of all, it provides enrichment and stimulation, which means that you'll have a happy and healthy cat. And a lot of people think that cats don't need that stimulation and play every day, but that's completely false, at least especially for Kimchi, because they really do need that. And harness training provides an opportunity for you to do that. And ultimately, with this enrichment and stimulation, due to the physical activity and also bonding with you, you'll have a happy and healthy, nurtured cat. So let's move on to the next slide, please. Yeah. And furthermore, this gives you an opportunity to safely adventure with your cat. And this is truly safer than having a cat that goes indoor and outdoor, especially if you're living in the city. So I'm based in Montreal, really like very big city, and I would not feel comfortable with Kimchi going outside by herself. And this provides the opportunity because you'll be monitoring and holding your cat with the leash, and you can see exactly what your cat is getting into, what they're sniffing, what they might be interested in, and you're essentially making sure that they don't encounter any sticky situations with you around. So at any given time, let's say you see a dog coming towards you, you can pick up your cat and put them in a backpack. And also, something to keep in mind, cats are predators. Bird populations have decreased because of cats that are indoor and outdoor, and that's been a major problem for a lot of different cities. And furthermore, it gives the opportunity for your cat and as well as you to travel with your cats. So for example, I have to go home back and forth between Vancouver and Montreal, and this just gives it gives us an easier time to be able to do that. It makes traveling on trains, planes, and cars way easier when they have a harness on. And alternatively, if you encounter any emergencies, which is something that a lot of other cat folks have spoken about, harnesses are really helpful to ensure that your cat is around you at all times and you can monitor them. And so you can quickly put it on. So for example, in our current apartment, we have the fire alarm ringing quite frequently. So for us to be able to just put Kimchi into that harness and just be able to go, that has been extremely helpful. And let's move on to the next slide, please. And also, as Emerson had just presented, having a cat backpack and doing backpack training is really complementary. It has made our lives extremely easy. So I'll just show you can you see it? My pink backpack. Oop, you can't even see me. Anyway, I have a pink backpack from the Travel Cat folks that we use to get Kimchi in and outside. And it's a great thing to have when you're traveling or when you're on the go for emergencies again. So let us go into the next slide, please. And if there's one thing that I can remind you throughout these trainings and throughout all of our chats together, it's that cats are not dogs. So training them and walking with them will not be the same as training or walking your pup. And furthermore, not all cats are the same. So keep this in mind when you're starting out. Some cats are more receptive to harnesses than others. Some cats prefer H harnesses. Some cats prefer the vest style harnesses. So that's something important to keep in mind. And be patient and take your time and remember that, not all cats are the same. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So that said, it's so important for you to remember that when you are starting out to harness train, patience is truly key. It will take time. It's not an immediate thing. Some cats will be immediately taken by the harness, but other cats won't. And you know what? The other thing too, if your cat absolutely does not want to do it, just looking at their body language, that's fine too. There are so many other ways to enrich and entertain your cat, whether that's through sniffle toys, generally toys, and having like cat TV in the background. So let's go to the next slide, please. So now that I've kind of gone through that, there are different reasons why you should harness train your cat, and also you've done the research on the different types of harnesses that are available. What's the first thing that you have to do in order to get your cat used to the harness? So for us, it was a really huge thing to introduce it. And in the previous session with Emerson, she showed a really great tip where you put the harness on top of your cat's back to kind of get them used to having something on them. Fantastic idea. But essentially what we've done is we've let Kimchi sniff it. We've let her get used to being with it on around in the apartments and leaving it somewhere where they can have it around and just be able to have it there. And use it around the house. But that's what we really did to get started, is have that harness on for at least 5 minutes, and then increasing the amount of time that Kimchi is exposed with the harness on. And throughout this, please do make sure that you're supervising your cat in all of these activities, because it's really important, again, for you to see their body language and how they react and see whether or not it's too tight for them, whether or not they're struggling. And like I said, put them in the harness in your house, in your apartment, in your condo for a few minutes at a time every day, and gradually increase the amount of time that they spend in it. Once they're walking more comfortably with it on, you can add the leash and allow them to walk around with the leash and with you leading. Let me go to the next slide, please. So how do you get your harness on? There's a really good video, I think it was a couple of years ago, where someone had their cat and really easily put the harness on because they were licking some churros, some catted creamies as they were doing that. So with that said, how we do it with kimchi is using that trick as well. So whenever kimchi is eating, that makes it really easy for us to actually just plop her into the harness, so into the armholes, with her little paws and her arm. And throughout it, we use quite a bit of incentives when we are starting out. So using our churros, using our catted creamies, using our freeze-dried treats. And we did this as well, not only when they were going into the harness, but also every time they finished with the harness on, giving them a little bit of a treat to just let them know that they did a great job. And one thing that we like to talk about are high value treats. So this is a treat that they really love and you don't give much of. I don't give a lot of the churros, for example. So that makes it really enticing for them to actually, look forward to having that harness on, because they know at that point in time, after they have it on, that they'll receive that incentive. And throughout the time when they actually do have that harness on, give words of affirmation. So usually we say it in high pitched frequency, as in, great job, Kimchi. And since you're already around them, give them lots of pats and scratches and reassurance. And you can also use their favorite toys. So using their wand toy to help them ease into the harness as well. And once they're used to the actual harness and leash being on, you can start actually holding onto them and leading them with the leash. And what we like to do is use our shorter leash from the cat backpack, folks. It's kind of hard to see it here, but having that as a lead when you're just in your apartment. And so once they're used to you following, you can actually start guiding them. So this means putting a little bit of pressure, not a lot at all, as they walk around in your home. So leading them to where you want to go and letting them follow. Here as well, it's really important, again, to use incentives like a favorite toy to lead them. So for example, I've seen leashes where you can actually add their favorite toy, like something with catnip, for example, to be able to follow that. That's been really useful as well. Or if you have a churro on you, you just lead with the leash and lead them with the treat. And can we go on to the next slide, please? And something to keep in mind as you're kind of starting out to train your cat with the harness is that cats explore much differently than dogs. So this means, as we've said already, it'll be a lot slower. There'll be way more distractions, and it's definitely not going to be as easy to lead, even if you have those treats. So that's something to keep in mind. With that said, patience and treats are a must when you're starting out. And throughout it, just be patient and let them take in the sights and sounds and get used to it. Let's go into the next slide. And something in terms of tips that we really do recommend. So like I mentioned, we live in Montreal, and that is a huge, it's a big city. It's loud. There's a lot of cars around. And we are very intentional with the types of destinations that we choose when we're adventuring with kimchi. So we've started out small. So like I've said, like so many times already, we started out at home. We started on our balcony and our previous apartment's rooftop to walk kimchi around. This meant that there weren't a lot of people, but kimchi was already getting used to having the harness on with all the sounds, smells, I guess texture, the wind and whatnot that's in the outside. And with that said, too, we always supervise and walk her, even if the space is small. So even if we were just on our balcony, I would be on that balcony with Kimchi, holding on to the leash to make sure everything's okay. And after the sounds from the outside were more familiar, that's when we really started looking for small local parks nearby. And throughout this, one thing to keep in mind when you do start going to your small local parks is having an exit plan. So this means being able to get your cat in and out into your backpack, out of that park as easily as possible. Let's move on to the next slide, please. And before you start introducing long walks, some other considerations to have while you're on the harness. So first of all, where are you going? Making sure to do your own evaluation and assessment of where you're going. How many people do you think will be there? Is it noisy? Is there traffic? Will you be walking on a trail or on sidewalks? Is it the park that's really, really busy? Will there be other wildlife or animals? Like I mentioned before, our cats are actually predators, and that's something to consider. And furthermore, how much control do you have in the space? Is your exit plan going to be easy for you to be able to do? And one tip from us when we were adventuring and when we started out is really going to places we've previously been. So this means both with or without your cats. Have you been to that park before? Have you seen that hike before? Do you know what those exits look like? In all instances, no matter where you go, whether it's close by or far, pay attention and watch your cats very carefully. So this is where having a travel cat buddy and walking buddy is really helpful for a second pair of eyes. And then that's when we really started introducing longer walks and longer sessions, when we got used to it and when Kimchi started gaining her confidence. And I'll talk about this in a little bit with body language, but Kimchi was starting to dangle from her backpack, starting to sniff, and actually meowing at us to let her out of the backpack and start walking around with her with a leash and harness on. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so with that said, bring your cat backpack. We really truly believe in the importance of having that carrier or cat backpack around when it comes to walking your cat on a leash. And it's really complementary, like I said, to the harness training. Make sure to bring your essentials. So that means poop bags, treats, water, food and bowl to serve some of these items to your cats, including that high value treat as well. And I can't stress this enough, poop bags, you don't think you need it, but it will suddenly come up to you where you actually do need it. And there's been several times where we've been super thankful and lucky to have poop bags around because Kimchi has gone to the bathroom outside. And as I mentioned before, I walk with my partner all the time with Kimchi. So we are a team. There's four eyes to see Kimchi and to see where she's going. You don't necessarily need it, but for me, in terms of my confidence to walk with Kimchi, it makes it a lot easier. And also it's really fun because Kimchi follows one of us. So one of us is in the front and Kimchi will follow with us like helping lead. So that's been really, really helpful as well. And furthermore, we really like to close things off with a reward. So for example, True is a great partner for this event. She loves the churros. So every time we finish, we give Kimchi some churros, we give her a high five. She does the high five, especially after long walks. So let's move on to the next slide, please. And it's super important to pay attention to your cat's body language. As you're kind of developing your relationship with your cat, you can kind of see how they react to certain things. You can see what's normal, what's not. Are they panting? Are they breathing strangely? And, being able to go as quickly as possible. So let's move on to the next slide, please. You'll see that there's a really handy guide here to kind of see how cat reactions look when they're reacting certain ways. What we found for Kimchi is if her tail is up high and slightly wagging, they're super happy. If Kimchi's a little bit hunkered down, it means they're assessing the situation and evaluating their surroundings. If their tail is between their legs, it means they're frightened. If they have a wagging tail, it means they're either annoyed, getting angry, or focused. If they have a really puffy tail, so you'll see because it truly puffs up, it means they're scared. And because we have the backpack, whenever we do go out and we see that there's any body language that we're not sure of, we're able to put down the backpack and Kimchi can hop into the backpack. Like I said, that's super complimentary and really important for us to have. And she also has a tell when she wants to go out and walk from the backpack. Like I said, she'll start dangling, she'll meow at us, and she'll actually give me a pat on the back to let us know that she wants to go down and walk. It's really important to know your cat. And with time, when you're doing this at home, you can really tell when she's ready or when your cat is ready to go. So let's go on to the next slide, please. So some final cat harness tips for you and to summarize. When your cat is used to the harness and leash and when you're confident, start out gradually in your home, to your balcony or your backyard, to small parks that you're familiar with and other parks that you're familiar with as well, and always have an exit plan. And when you're doing all of this, associate with fun, associate it with high value treats, associate it with a good time for your cat. And you'll notice also that you'll be building their confidence a little bit slowly, but it's fine because you have the patience, because this is something that you want to build into them as well, so that you're not forcing them. And like I've said several times throughout this chat, patience and paying attention is super key when you're starting out. And finally, every cat is different. So again, not all cats are the same. It's okay if your cat takes time. It's okay if your cat kind of flops. That's all okay. Just take your time, gradually increase the amount of time that you're in the harness, give them those high value treats, give them the scratches, give them your highest pitched frequency voice to let them know that they're doing a great job. And if they're not happy, you can tell with their body language. So that's why it's super important to pay attention when you're walking your cat, especially when you're starting out, so that you get used to it. But yeah, so let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so now we are at the group photo session. So I don't know if Stephanie, if you want to take a photo for all of us, and then afterwards we shall do a quick Q&A. I noticed that there was a lot of happening in the chat, so we'll try and answer them as quickly as possible. Yes, it was very busy in the chat. Let's do a quick the quick giveaway before we dive into some questions, and then we'll end quickly. So our harness winner is Karen Gaylor. Are you still here, Karen Gaylor? If you are, please put it in the chat. Say hi to us. Karen Gaylor. Yeah, congrats, Karen. So you just want to send an email over to the Your Cat Backpack team. So Steph, STEPH at yourcatbackpack.com. And let me see if there's any questions in the chat that I can quickly answer. Okay, question. Yes, what type of harness would be good for a tiny, thin, squiggly cat? For us, so Kimchi's she's a large cat, so Kimchi's fine with anything, but we've actually found that the new age harness from the cat backpack folks from Travel Cat has been really, really helpful, because you can actually adjust it based on your cat's size. It's really easy to adjust. So that's a recommendation that we have here. And also these harnesses as well are really great because there are different sizes. It's super important for you to measure them though. But I do recommend the H style, because you are able to modify them according to your cat's body. And Susan has another question here. Which harness is more secure? Vest or H style? Again, that is that's a good question, Chris. So that's also a preference. So what we found with Kimchi is like it doesn't really matter. It's really based on her body language. I find that the H style harness from Travel Cat is really, really secure, but these are also really secure as well, just because they have both the Velcro plus this clip, and you can also clip them on here. So that's super helpful. Thank you folks for coming. There's still a bunch of different programs as well happening throughout the rest of the sessions, but we really, really appreciate all of your time for chatting with us and learning with us. Like I said, if you do have any questions at all, I'm super happy to answer them.